Hello, I'm excited to have you here. Um, to start off, I just want to know if you can, if someone can put in the chat to make sure that you can hear me and also see my screen. If anyone could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. We'll be starting the webinar here in about a minute. Perfect. All right. Well, I am excited to be here with you and go through um, how OneDrive and our NetDocuments integrations work and kind of give you a little bit more about Nacli and what we do and then document automation. Um, this webinar is going to be divided into a couple different parts. First, going to give you a little bit of overview if you're not familiar with Nacli, just so you have an idea of what it is that we do in the document automation. Then we'll go through and talk about the integrations of OneDrive and NetDocuments, and then we'll go kind of how it's in use, and then go into a little bit of configuration on how things are set up so you can kind of get a flavor for it, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I'm excited to be with you. So just to give you a little bit of history about us, we had been in the document automation industry for about 25 years before starting Nacli. We started Nacli 4 years ago, and the reason why we decided to start Nacli was that we really grew frustrated with the existing products that were on the market, whether they didn't have enough functionality or they had so much functionality that it was hard to get access to that functionality. And we wanted to figure out different ways to approach it. And it really wasn't easy to do advanced document automation, and it was just, we felt like it was taking longer than it should to actually go through and do documents. So to kind of talk through our document, what I say is our document automation philosophy. The first one is reduce, reuse, and recycle with models. Nacli is a object-oriented framework where you can reuse information in different ways. So with a model, you can go through and use that same model in other areas. And data within that model becomes really easy to reuse data. The second philosophy, it kind of alluded to already, is data. So most document automation systems out there data felt like it was an afterthought. When we started Nacli, we looked at data is kind of the central key to how we approach things, because really when you're automating documents, you are going through and you're entering a whole lot of data. Some of that data is useful, extremely useful. Some of it's not as useful, but we wanted ways that you could get access to that data that was useful into your other systems, which leads me to integration. Nacli was built data structure and with basically integrations from the ground up. So we were able to use modern technologies to make it so that we can connect to different systems, and you'll see some of those today. That internally everything is done through, not to get too technical, but API calls internally and externally, which means that we have the ability to integrate with different systems out there. So how does that kind of play into what's in the market today? It really has been, oops. When you think about the systems that are out there, and this isn't an entire list of everything out there, but it's been fairly linear in what you had, in that, you had ease of automation. usually meant low functionality. High functionality meant it was hard to automate. And what we set out to do is kind of break that mold and make it so that you can get into Nacli and start doing some sophisticated automation quickly, if you need to, or if you know that you are going to start with some simpler automation, then make it so that you can get in and do that simpler automation and know that you have a system that can grow with you. And so that's kind of how we approach Nacli, is that built in that reduce, reuse, and recycle. It makes it so that you can actually reuse things in different ways easily. So integration philosophy. Data, like I said earlier, is kind of the key to how we approach things. And really, when we're thinking of integration, we know that Nacli may be, there's this concept of source of truth. What is the single source of truth? So if you've got other systems out there, be able to connect to those systems that become your source of information, and either pull that into Nacli to be able to use and use the data in the way that's needed, or that if you are adding on things within during the Nacli intake process, that you can actually push it back out to those different places as well. The second philosophy is workflow. How can we make it so that you can have a workflow that ties into what you are currently doing and really makes it so that it seamlessly integrates and moves between systems? So that's where we're going with workflow. And then team, making sure that your team has the tools that they need to be able to efficiently and effectively go through and create and do their work, really, and as efficient and as profitable a manner as possible. So to give you an idea of some of the other integrations we've done Filevine, Curo, 365, Clio, and Zapier, and today we'll be talking about OneDrive and NetDocuments. So a couple of things to note on OneDrive and NetDocuments, some of the requirements that are going to be needed. One is, with both of them, that you'll need the Plus or Professional subscription. With OneDrive, you do need the OneDrive Business. It is included with Microsoft 365 accounts, so if you have already subscribed to it, you have access to it already. You're already paying for it. You might as well make use of it, and that's why we went with OneDrive. We do, with our Clio integration, you can go through and I'll actually show this today. You can actually have, Clio has a OneDrive integration that basically replaces how information is stored, so you can actually restore it in OneDrive and have access to it right within Clio. With NetDocuments, you will need, of course, a NetDocuments, have that purchased. We do have a cost. NetDocuments is basically charging us to be able to use their API, so we have needed to pass some of that cost on to our customers. But it's basically $5 per user per month for the first 50 users, and then we have a sliding scale after that. So just to give you an idea of the requirements needed and how it works. So let's just go ahead and jump in and see how this is going to work. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I have a ultra wide screen and it's liking. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So first one I'm going to go through is OneDrive, how it works and what we can do with it. I'm actually just going to delete this record here. It's one I was playing around with. So what you're seeing right here is basically the NACLI catalog dashboard. In this case, I'm doing estate planning. So if I want to do a new client, I just click on new client. I'm going to click on estate plan. I am going to use my link to Clio so I can just pull information in quickly, and so you don't have to see me enter a whole bunch of things in. You'll see with that, I've got all the information that I had in Clio pulled right in. Now I can just go through and answer some questions. So let's just say I want to do a will and POA package. What you then see is now it's asking me more questions. So what are your assets, will options? So I can go through and it's dynamically asking questions. So if I include guardians, it's going to ask me questions based on the information I have. Guardians, I can pick who the guardians are. So let's just say Jen Jones, I want her as a guardian. And this is our ability to reuse information. So if I go through and change Jen Jones in some fashion, it will actually change it anywhere I have. So I've gone through, filled out basically our intake process and click complete. And what's happening is if I go to the Harry Smithy, it basically then went through and created all of these documents, and it put it right into the OneDrive for Business. So now I can have access to it right here. I don't have to worry about downloading it. It's just ready to go. I can make any edits or adjustments that I need to it. So it really makes it nice that it's there. And you'll see that it's automatically formatted with naming convention the way I'd like it. Then if I go into Clio and I just will do a refresh here. Then we have access to all the information right in Clio to add time or do whatever we need to do within Clio. So it becomes a nice integration, whether you need just OneDrive on its own, or if you're using Clio, it makes it so you can go through and handle it quickly and easily, and really just store things in a way that makes sense for you as you're going through and doing it. Actually have a poll. Let's just pull that up. I'm curious about what your main practice area is. So you'll see a poll that just popped up. Kind of want to find out a little bit more about what it is people are doing. Looks like we have about, so far, a fair amount of estate planning people on the call. We got some loan, got some litigation, got some full service firms. That's great. Next question I have for you, I'm just kind of curious on how are you managing your documents today? So we have some NetDocuments users, some OneDrive users, some other document options. Okay, well, that's great. That just kind of helps me to know a little bit of the audience as well, and I appreciate your feedback here. All right, so now let's talk what the configuration looks like with OneDrive. So I'm just going to go to our designer. Setup, basically what you're going to do is OneDrive, you're going to connect it to you're basically going to connect it to OneDrive and then select the OneDrive. We do have the option of versioning if you want to. Versioning means that basically when we recreate a document, it will create a new version for that same document. The way without it, if I go through and rerun it, what you'll now see is it's going to look and see without versioning. It's going to see, all right, I had one there, so I'm going to give it another. I'm going to add a 1 or a 2 so that you can see which ones you've used most often. This is a great way to be able to see where you're at. So configuring it, once I've connected it, and I'll just take this as an example. So basically what we do is we do a profile, and then we want to do the folder path of where we want it to go. And in this case, I need it to go to Clio. And this is kind of a Clio-centric one, because within Clio, they have a certain place that you need to put things. So one, it's Clio, then it gives the first name and last name, first name. If it's an individual, if it is, if it's a company, then you've got to do it based on the corporate, by the company name, which is where I've gone through and put some conditional logic in here, depending on what type of situation it is, and then the Clio Matter ID. So with this, I can go through and I can basically say, this is where I want it to go. And it's going to place it right in the folder that I need it to go in. And certainly if I wanted to then, in some case, for a POA, I wanted them in a separate folder, I could certainly add I could add a POA folder on it so that it could go straight to there. So I can go through and have some configuration options there. And also in the assembled file name, you can go through and say exactly what you want the name to be. So in this case, I've got the client full name, general POA. So in a nutshell, this is the configuration. You just basically go through on each document that you want to have within OneDrive. You just go through and configure it, put the folder path that you want it to be in, and then it will just automatically place it there. Second, so now let's go to OneDrive. What does that look like? So in OneDrive, I've gone through and created Acme. I've got a letter here. I am going to place everything in the letter, and you can see I don't have anything here yet. So I'm just going to create it, and in this case, I'm just using our FileVine integration so I can easily pull things in without having to bore you with entering a whole bunch of information. And in this case, I'm going to create both of these documents. And you can see one document, it's just going to ask you information based on that document and create AMA appeal. Then I can go through and put in other information in. And I've basically just pulled in everything that I need to know from it. We are keying off of, so in documents, and you'll see it in the configuration, we've got the client ID and matter ID that we need to be able to pull in. And in this case, I'm just pulling it in from FileVine, but depending on the situation, there's some different approaches that you can take depending on what systems you're using. We just need to basically know what a couple of those pieces of information are with client and matter to be able to pull them in. Then I go ahead and click complete. And I've got these documents that have been created. I can certainly click on that. If I click on it, I can do a preview of it, see what it looks like. This is kind of a simple preview. The other option is that we've created, if you've got the word add-in, and this is why we did it this way, if you've got the add-ins, if I do a shift click, it's actually going to open up it, check it out for me, and then it's going to open it up in Word. So it's just working on that right now. And then I've got my Word document. I can go, the nice thing is now I've got it open, I'm in. You saw here that I've gone through the version. I've got the client matter. It's a document type. I can add author. I can add other profile details. You can actually do it because we actually import your profile details when we do the initial configuration of NetDocuments. So you can go through and automatically pre-populate these so that it's searchable and you can find it. And it also gives you the ability to get, I guess, systematized about how documents are stored so that as people are using it, that you know that it's going to the right place, which is usually an issue, that you've got different people doing different things. By having Nacli in the mix, you can then go through and kind of control it, make it easy for them so that they can have it exactly where they need it to be. You'll see, so if I were to go through and add, so this is a test, and I click save, it's now automatically saving this to NetDocuments. So if I were to close this, and I'm just going to go in here, if I do a refresh, you'll see the letter. You'll see that all the change that I made is carried over, so I don't have to worry. So it really keeps it pretty seamless in how I'm going to approach it. But with questions here, if I were to rerun it, right now we have it so it just creates a new document. We haven't done versioning. We're kind of looking to see what the users are interested in and how they're using it before we add some more functionality that we're looking at adding later. So let's go into the configuration of it. And please, if you do have questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in, and then I'll be answering them at the end. So you'll see the NetDocuments. You'll select your region. You'll put in your repository ID, connect it, and then you can see you can connect it to the appropriate cabinet, and then you just click Import Cabinet. And with that, you now have access. We basically brought in the profile fields that you use for that cabinet. Each workspace is just using one cabinet. In larger firms, the approaches that we're taking is if you do need different cabinets, usually it's a different practice area, and we basically can do multiple workspaces for different practice areas is kind of the approach that we're taking there. So what does it look like when we were going through and configuring it? So you'll see I've got the profile, NetDocuments demo profile. I've got the client, so I just have to put where am I grabbing the client ID from, where are we going to pull it from, where are we going to pull the matter from, the document type. Certainly this could be a fillable field if you want, or since it's, in this case, I could do it, I just said it was a letter, so I can hard code that, and then who the author is going to be. And I didn't have author entered in Filevine. So, but same thing as the OneDrive integration, that you can go through and do the assembled file name so that you can get the exact name of it that you want to have, and they'll pull that information in. So that kind of gives you a basic overview of how OneDrive and NetDocuments work with our integration. And kind of nearing the end here, but I am going to stay on and answer questions. But if you would like to see how Nacli would work for your firm, please go to our website and click on and go to nacli.io/demo. I do see some questions coming in, so let's answer those. One question is there a one-way sync only from NetDocuments to OneDrive? Can someone start a document in OneDrive, then sync back to ND? You could certainly do the OneDrive, start at OneDrive. If you're going to sync it back to NetDocuments, then you basically would have to go through. In our view, it's kind of one or the other as far as the Nacli integration goes, but you could go through and do some syncing to get it into NetDocuments through Power Automate, and there's some other tools out there that would allow you to do that. Can sync take place at a folder level? Right now, our approach in NetDoc, I'm going to assume, so I'll answer it for both NetDocuments and OneDrive. OneDrive, it is taking place at the folder level, so certainly each document can go to a different folder if you want to. With NetDocuments, we've taken the approach that we're using the profiling to get it to where it needs to go. So. Certainly, if there are other questions, happy to answer them either online or offline. All right. Well, I thank you for joining us today. And if you do have questions, please reach out to us. Happy to do a demo. Just go to nacli.io/demo. For those of you that are current users of Nacli and want to be able to add these things on, you can actually you can click on the demo, or you can do a support link and we'll go through and add it. We are going to be sending out some configuration videos to get a little bit more in depth on how to go through and set it up initially. That will be coming out in our newsletter next week, so you can be looking for those and go from there. Just to refresh costs, so with OneDrive, it's included. You just have to have a Plus or Professional Nacli subscription. For NetDocuments, we do have an add-on cost. It's $5 per month per user for the first 50, and then a sliding scale after that. So please look forward to be able to speak with you, and appreciate you joining us today, and look forward to helping you. Thank you.